behind, so let's go in there. So good evening and welcome everybody to the June edition of the JoziPUG Meetup. I hope you are all keeping warm and safe during this crazy time and are getting to learn a couple of things. Hopefully tonight we can continue that trend to help show you some of the new things that are coming out. Just by ways of a quick introduction, for those of you who don't know me, I am Jonathan Hart and I'm a technical architect working in the Microsoft Technology Center. And I'm going to be taking you through the news and welcome. And then we've got some other team members that will be covering some various aspects during the session. Now, please, while we are busy, stay on mute unless you are asking a question. If you do come off mute and ask a question, please just introduce yourself so we know who's speaking. Just your first name is perfect. For those of you not comfortable coming off mute, please use the meeting chat to ask your questions or use the raise hands feature if it is available for you. We will be keeping an eye on that and calling it out. Just a reminder that these sessions are being recorded and are uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if you do want to review some of the items that we've discussed afterwards, feel free to head over there and check out the recordings from there. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be taking you through, as usual, just the news and some of the new features that are coming out, some of the new functions that are being added to the tools and where to go and get a lot more insights. Then we've got some mixed reality in Power Apps by Karika today. She's going to be demonstrating some of the capabilities on how bringing that augmented reality or mixed reality items into Power Apps can add value to you at the end of the day. Then David's going to take us through PVA on roids. He's got some cool demos to show us around that. And then we'll finish off with Michael's cookbook at the end, where he's going to be speaking to himself, I think he said, asking some questions about the CDS and then going to be answering some of those as well at the same time. As always, please, let's keep this engaging. We are taking time out of our days to attend these meetings, so we need to make sure that we are getting the most info out of it as possible. So please feel free to ask questions, be engaging, and get involved with everyone. So let's just kick off with some of the items in the news. And one thing that I think is really great is that just the acceleration we are seeing with the adoption of Power Apps. And this user group has had a direct impact on this. You can see on the stats about, there was a slight drop in the usage. And this is about more or less when we started up JoziPUG. And you can see since then, it's just astronomically grown. So the stats are showing that we have had an impact and we are accountable for this rapid acceleration in the platform. David, I don't know if you agree with that statement. I think it's a pretty
absolutely. I
accurate.
can't see why we can't claim that.
Exactly. So this is it's a really good stat to see that Power Apps is being adopted so much quicker. I mean, we 3 times the amount that we were at last time this year. And it's just growing astronomically quick. I mean, I'm dealing with so many customers on a daily basis that are very quickly adopting the platform and wanting to get these things into their environment as fast as possible. Now, some of the new features and some of the real news that's coming out is we've got new DLP capabilities that are coming out in public preview. What this means is we have a new user interface in the Power Platform Admin Center for us to set up and define these DLP policies. We also now have the ability to block connectors as well as set up DLP policies on HTTP connectors. And this is going to make a lot of people happy and it's going to add a lot of value to a lot of organizations where they don't want connectors into certain systems available. And also they've got those HTTP connectors which they are using. They may want to enforce some DLP policies on them at the end of the day. The other item, which is really great news that we are hearing, is we've got the ability to very easily create custom connectors using Azure Functions and Azure API management. So built in directly into the Azure API management, you have the ability to push these custom connectors directly to a specific Power Apps environment in your organization for use and consumption with Power Apps. So this is just showing you how easily you're able to build out custom connectors for absolutely any application or system that you are running in your Azure environment or even outside of your Azure environment. We've also got a new T-SQL endpoint for the common data service. This is great news for those DBAs who have spent their lives in SQL Server Management Studio and now are moving towards the common data service. They are now able to connect to the common data service using SQL Server Management Studio, where they can go in and browse the tables, write SQL queries, and do the things that they've been doing for a number of years already, but take all those skills and bring them directly into the CDS. This is what's really great about this. All the richness of the common data service is applied, including authentication and authorization, security, and all that business logic runs transparently under the hood. So you've got access to that, and I think this is going to add a lot of value at the end of the day. Some of the new AI capabilities, we've had some updates to the AI Builder forms processing, which now lets you recognize undetected fields. For those of you who have worked with the AI Builder form in the past, what you could have found is it may not have picked up some of the fields while you were busy trying to train your model and bring the items in. Now you have the ability to go and select items that have been picked up, and you can also remove items when you don't want them available inside there. So this is going to add some additional functionality and complexity to some of the forms that we are processing inside there. AI Builder also now supports numerical prediction, which it didn't have this capability in the past. It is currently in preview, but now you have the ability to predict things like price estimates, time to completion, product ratings, customer churn, and a number of other items from a numerical prediction perspective. So lots of great features coming into AI Builder. There were a couple of other ones that I may have missed out on. But over the last 2 months, we've seen a couple of large events happen, one of them being the Business Application Summit. So there were a number of Power Platform sessions, specifically around Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. If you want to go and have a look and attend some of those sessions, they were recorded. Follow that hyperlink down at the bottom, and that's going to filter all the Power App specific or Power Platform specific sessions. And there's a lot of great insights in there as well, so go check it out. We've also recently completed Build Developer Conference, and there was also a lot of great sessions inside there. We've also curated them, so we've got specific sessions focused on the Power Platform. So head over to this URL and you will get access. Well, it will filter out all the specific Power Platform sessions for you to watch and focus on if you want to get a bit more information on that. Okay. So that's all I've got at the moment for in the news and welcome. Is there anything else anyone else has heard of or picked up in the news, or anything that they would like to share with the rest of the audience?
Yeah,
Hey,
I think there's
Jonathan.
been. Yep.
Sorry, there were 2 people there. I didn't see who the other person was.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that
Right.
slide on the being able to use SQL Management Studio to connect directly to CDS. What it also enables is Power BI to have direct query to CDS. And what's pretty cool about that is that your data is, in quotes, I'll say real time. So it's faster, it's live, and it also means permissions are obeyed. So for example, I build a dashboard in Power BI getting me my latest rows from CDS, maybe they're leads or opportunities or cases or whatever they are. The person who's viewing that dashboard will only see the rows that they have permissions to. And in the past, you'd have to go and pull another permissions model essentially in Power BI, and now you don't need to do that because it does a direct query to CDS under the context of the user that's viewing it, and so that works all pretty well.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Michael. Yeah, that is great news. David,
Yeah.
you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that's just for everybody on the call. In the back end, CDS is just running SQL. So there's a lot of schemas and layers on top of it, but essentially it's just SQL in the back end. Then just some two other small announcements from a functionality perspective. There's been a couple of things, but I think two of these stand out for me. The one is the fact that you can now use the launch function and add parameters to specify whether it should launch in a new window or in an existing window, or an existing tab rather. So in Power Apps, you've got the launch function that will launch a URL, and then you can now create like a portal type interface in a Canvas app, and you can easily have that launch other Power Apps, and you're in full control over whether it should happen in the same tab or in a new tab.
Okay. So it's effectively going to replace the session if you're opening it up in that current tab.
Correct. So, and then the other one is the self property. So on most of the controls in Power Apps, there's now, in Canvas apps, there's now a self property where you can refer back to the control which you are executing on. And I think, off the bat, that doesn't sound very useful, but it is actually extremely useful in order to have generic formulas. So if you're going to use a formula that goes and checks which control it's executing on, you can go and find a color, for an example. So if you want to set the border color for a property, you can have a self.border color, and then you can set the border focused color and all of these sort of things to be the same as the border color without having to type the same formula in the whole time. So you can select all of your controls and paste the same formula into all of them at the same time, and all of them would work.
Oh, that's also awesome. There is a question from Chris, just asking about when that portal for Canvas is due. I'm assuming you're talking to the launch function, Chris?
Yes, please.
Yeah. David, any ideas? That should start being available in people's tenants already, or is it busy running out? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, so it's just a launch function. So you still have to build the Power App yourself, but then in the way that you can launch other Power Apps from that portal, or from that application directory, if you want to call it that, you now have the launch function that gives you more functionality. So it's not an out-of-the-box Canvas that's Canvas app.
No, sure, understood. That's a current problem statement, so the interest.
Cool.
Perfect. Anything from anyone else? Okay, great. So with that, Karika, I think I'm going to hand over to you to demonstrate what you've been doing around mixed reality.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks, everyone. There's really some cool features rolling out in the Power Platform section of Microsoft. I'm having lots of fun, I must honestly tell you that. So let me share my screen, and then we can start with the presentation. So just a slight warning, my presentation has a lot of pugs, because what's JoziPUG without pugs?
I love it. It's great.
Cool. Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm going to be talking a little bit about mixed reality in Power Apps. I've put down a few hashtags that is worth your while to follow on Twitter. If you're at all interested in this functionality, we've got Power Addicts, hashtag JoziPUG, hashtag less code, more power, hashtag Power Platform, and hashtag mixed reality. There's really a lot happening at the moment in the mixed reality space. Just after Microsoft Build, there was a mixed reality developer user group that was also having their conference, also from Microsoft, and it's really been an interesting journey. So first of all, for those who don't know me, my name is Karika. I'm a born-again child of God. I also work for iSolve Business Solutions. I'm a development consultant, and you can find me on Twitter at Karika_B. Let's look at what's on the agenda. I've got mixed reality in my own words. Then we'll look at a demo, go through some lessons learned, and then I'll just share some resources that I used during playing around. And before we go any further, I would just like to make a disclaimer. Like I told David earlier, I am by no means a professional. I just find mixed reality very interesting, and I absolutely love building Power Apps. So this is a great combination for me. So mixed reality in my own words. For me, it's Narnia, but through a lens and not a wardrobe. Okay, you enter this magical space, but you can do it in the comfort of your own home without having to go through an eerie wardrobe and not knowing where you're going to end up. But I will read what Wikipedia says about this. It's quite a mouthful, so that's why I decided I'll rather define it for myself. That makes sense to me, but I'll read it in any case as well. So mixed reality, abbreviated MR, is the merging of real and virtual worlds to produce new environments and visualizations, where physical and digital objects coexist and interact in real time. Mixed reality does not exclusively take place in either the physical or virtual world, but is a hybrid of reality and virtual reality, encompassing both augmented reality and augmented virtuality via immersive technology. That's a lot, hey? I was like, what? But anywho. Cool, so let's jump straight into a demo. Very exciting. I found it to be really easy to, I'm just gonna share my demo screen with everyone quickly. So what I've done is I have created a semi-pre-built app. The reason for that is just for time, because obviously adding all the little frills and things takes up more time than it actually does to just add the mixed reality features to the app. What I also would like to show everyone is I've decided to use SharePoint as my data source. As a suggestion, please read the documentation. I've caused myself so much unnecessarily digging for information instead of just reading the documentation that's already on Microsoft Docs. They really explain it so well. You can use a host of different resources as your data source. You can use GitHub. You can use an Excel spreadsheet. You can use Microsoft OneDrive. You can use SharePoint. So the list is really quite vast. I decided to use SharePoint because I'm the most familiar with SharePoint, and I found this to be the easiest solution for me. So what I did was within SharePoint, I created a SharePoint list, and I also hope in future to use Microsoft lists, which is one of the new features that was mentioned at Build. Very exciting. So it's just the SharePoint list, and then what I had to do was when you click on, let me just click on add column. Can everybody, just to be sure, can everybody see my screen okay? Is the text,
Yes.
is the font right?
Yeah, we can see it fine.
Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. Cool, so in the list, you click on add column and you will see there's a show hide columns option. So once you click that, we need to select attachments, because what we will do is upload the 3D model into this list item as an attachment. So, and the rest of the columns is just additional columns that you can add as metadata. Another point, or the few columns that's really important, is animal height, animal width, animal depth. I know that sounds very wrong, but it helps when showing your model. It'll all make sense soon. And then unit of measurement. So just to give some background on the app that I was trying to create, I was thinking of having 3D models of animals where you can actually teach a child more about an animal and they can actually see it in their own space. So that's just one of the scenarios I thought it would be really helpful in education. So that was the inspiration behind the app. So to add one item and show you what it looks like, I think the tiger is the most complete. So you've got your title. I tried to add animal sounds. I couldn't quite get it to work, hoping that the Power Platform community can assist me there going forward.
Jonathan can help out with that.
Who?
Thanks,
Jonathan
David.
can help out. He can make the noises.
Yay! Cool. For the preview of an image, I just stored the images of the animals also in SharePoint, the site's asset document library, put a short description, put all the fields, and then you'll see at the attachments column, I've added the .glb file. So what is important is that when you use 3D models inside of Power Apps, they have to be in a .glb format. So I'm saying that because that's what the documentation says. I do not have enough experience in 3D modeling to explain why this is a better option. So, but I do know that they said that this will not stay the only option. They are looking at expanding so you can use different file formats.
Karika, do you mind if I ask a question quickly?
Sure.
So how easy is it to obtain these 3D models? Did you find like a store with a plethora of models to choose from, or was it a pretty teeth-pulling experience?
No, it is actually really easy. You've got Sketchfab, who's got a whole host of free to use 3D models. What I did find difficult to find is like 3D models that's in the .glb format already, but there is a whole host of websites that allow you to convert it from whatever 3D model format it is to .glb. What I also found, which is actually the one that I used more than Sketchfab, is 3D Viewer in Windows. It actually has a 3D library with a great selection of 3D models that you can use just like 3D. That. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask if you would check that out and try that, because there is a huge library inside there. I just wasn't sure about the format that those models came in, or if you can export to GLB.
Yeah, so what you can do is when you export it from 3D Viewer using on Windows, this is one of the that's pointed out as the lessons learned, but it's a good lesson to learn, is when you export it directly from 3D Viewer, it actually just exports a white model.
Dus de andere meeting dan. Oh,
okay. And there's also, if you use your 3D Viewer and then you choose to open it in 3D Paint, and then you export the model, it exports it in a format called .fpx. And then you can convert that FPX model to a .glb, and then you get the color with your 3D model. But if you just do it from 3D Viewer, it just puts out a blank, or not a blank model, but a white model. So yeah, I was sitting with a very interesting looking white tiger. But it's, yeah, like I say, it's been an interesting journey. I've been having so much fun. Cool, so SharePoint is my data source. So let's jump into the Power App. Obviously, I start at make.powerapps.com, where you start creating a new app. I already, like I said, created like a pre-populated app. So I'll just show you how to add the mixed reality features to the app. So let's just go and edit this app. I've chosen the phone layout on a blank canvas app. So let's just wait for it to load. Is everybody with me so far? Everything's looking good?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so I found that adding the mixed reality features and starting to use these features, as they say, you can literally just pop it onto a screen and it works. I found that that is really how it works. Because, sometimes you have to like tweak a lot of things, make some extra settings that weren't mentioned in the demo. And then you only find that out when you want to go and build the app. Cool. So I don't know if everyone see this fine?
Yep, perfect.
That
cool.
looks good.
Yes,
So awesome. So I'm gonna jump straight to the animal details screen, which is the screen I want to focus on, because this is where we will add displaying our model, and then also adding the features where we have a button that will display it through your device's camera lens. Cool. But first thing to mention is you'll see under the Insert tab, there's two places when you have actually activated mixed reality, the mixed reality features, where this will show up. So it will be under Media. There will be an additional feature here. And then there will actually be an additional tab to this bar that will be called mixed reality. So how do you activate these features? You go to File, you go to Settings. So this is currently in public preview. It's not generally available yet. I'm not too sure when it will become generally available, but for now it's still in public preview. So after you've gone to Settings, you go to Advanced Settings, and all the way here at the bottom, underneath Experimental Features, you will find Mixed Reality Features, and you can just enable that. And then an important thing that I've learned while building Power Apps, and I'm sure many others have, is it's always important to save. Because if you don't save and you close this tab or the browser, all of that work is lost. Cool. So now if we check under Media, you'll see I have an additional option called View in 3D. And then I also have this Mixed Reality tab, which have 3 buttons in there. You can view in mixed reality, view a shape in mixed reality, or measure in mixed reality. And I'll explain all of those just now. So first I'm going to drag the View in 3D object onto the screen. So what this allows is this allows you to view your model inside of your app. Okay, and this is a cool feature. Just if you want to have a look at the model, zoom in on it, zoom out, rotate it around, it gives you the ability to do exactly that. And then if we just look at the properties for this object, is you've got source. This is the only one that you need to set for this object. So what we'll do is we'll set the source. I think, let me just go to Advanced to set the source. I've watched some videos where some people said they had issues when adding the source in from the Properties tab, so they'd rather go to Advanced. So I'm just playing it safe and doing the same thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to, from our SharePoint data source, look for the first attachment we find, and then we're going to use that one. And since the GLB model is our only attachment to that SharePoint item, that's the one that it will find to use as a source. I'm sure there's other ways to use it, but this is the one I have as an example from the documentation, so I went with that. So let's go Animal Gallery. Select it. So where this Animal Gallery comes from is from the Animal Explore screen here on the left. It's just a gallery that uses that SharePoint list as its data source so that you can pick an animal and then view more details about that animal, which will bring you to this screen, which is the animal details screen. So animal gallery dot selected dot attachments.
Rika, just try and just put the is it working?
Just put the?
No, I thought you had an error there.
Oh. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. So that's all you do to set the source for your view in 3D object. And then it does take some time to load. So I found that when even using the app on the phone, I don't know if there's any way to improve the performance on this yet, but it does take a while to load. I'm guessing because it's quite a complex format, file format. Cool. So then if we move on, this is just to show the model on your physical app on the screen. So now we want to add a button that allows you to show this model, but in your environment, like when you use your camera. So then we go to mixed reality and you select the view in MR button. Comes up quite large, but what's nice about this button is you can completely customize it. You can change the color, you can change the text. So let's just go to the properties. And then you can see you can change the text of this object. You can say whether you want to only show an icon plus text, or just text. It's completely up to you. I like using only the icon. Makes it look a bit neater. Because then we can resize it as well. Great, so our 3D model has loaded. So let me see if I can just in the app show you how to. Oh, that was interesting. I don't know why it stopped sharing.
Someone started presenting something.
Okay. Cool. So can everyone see my screen again?
Yeah, it's back up.
Cool. So yeah, so we can see the 3D model, it's loaded, and then we're just going to add the button. So if we look at the button that I've just added, it has a source as a property as well, but then it's got a few extra properties, which is object width, object height, object depth. I have to say I was today years old when I saw this, so I was like really excited. By setting these values will actually determine how it is displayed through your camera lens when you actually put this item down on a surface. So you can decide what size it needs to be, which is great because it gives it more of a real lifelike type of feeling, you know, because I found that when I was playing around with it, when I placed the animal in my environment, I realized it was so tiny, and I was like, but the animal isn't really this tiny. And then today I realized it's because these properties weren't set. And that's where the columns comes in, where I said animal width, animal height, animal depth. And then you also have a unit of measurement. So you can either choose centimeters, feet, inches, or meters. Okay.
Sorry, Karika. So if you are populating that information in the SharePoint list, it's going to automatically populate these fields. Yeah, correct. Or do you have to specify them? Yeah.
You have to specify. So I'll show you just now. So I actually put formulas into each of the properties of this to get the information from SharePoint instead of reading the values here from the right.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Cool. So let's jump right into that. So the source, once again, I'm gonna set equal to getting the first attachment from the animal gallery selected item. I absolutely love how easy it is with Power Apps. You know, the IntelliSense is really nice, giving you the suggestions of what you can use. So here you can see this is what the URL looks like when it actually gets that .glb file format, which is very cool. So we'll set the source. Then what we will also set is the width, the depth, and the height. And you get those properties here, which is the object depth, object height, and object width. So what we'll do is we'll set this equal to animal gallery dot selected dot animal depth. And that's all you do to change it from reading on the right hand side to actually reading the value from what you have in your SharePoint list. And then we'll do the same for object height. Animal gallery dot selected dot animal height. And then lastly, we do the width, which is animal, whoops. Animal gallery dot selected animal width. Okay, then lastly, or second to last, is we also going to change the units property of this button, because we also in SharePoint I have a column where it's a choice field that they can actually choose when they add items to the SharePoint list, what unit of measurements should be used. So once again, there also we go animal gallery. Of measurement. Great. So lastly, something that I also want to change is the on-change property of this button. The reason, for that is I want to collect the photos that's being taken when you are viewing this through your camera. I actually want to collect those photos in a collection. So you do this by using the on-change property. So we go collect. I'm just going to call it my pictures. And we are collecting. And thank you, David, for mentioning about the self function. I actually used it for this demo. Self.photos. Great. And that's all that's needed to populate and start using these controls that you've put on the screen. I'm not going to run the app quite yet because I just want to also add the view shape in MR and measure in MR functions on the or controls on the screens, and then we can go into running the app from my mobile and you can see it working, just to be sure that I'm not lying about it just working out of the box like that. Cool, so let's go to the measurements explore screen. I've also pre-populated the screen with some controls, and then I'll explain why in just a moment. So there we go to mixed reality. We add the measure in MR button. Very similar to the view in MR button. And also, once again, completely customizable. You can change the color. You can change whether you want to show text and an icon, just an icon. So if we look at this button's properties, some extra properties that this button has is a unit of measurement and measurement type. Okay, so we've got for unit of measurement, we've got centimeters, feet, inches, and meters. And for measurement type, you have area and volume, distance, and volume. So I don't know how you actually get these values populated in a drop-down, but what I went and did was I just created a drop-down with those items in it, and the same for measurement type. And then what I went and did is for the measure in MR button, I actually set those properties, the unit of measurement, measurement type, to point to the drop-down lists instead. So let me just populate that quickly. So for this button, we are going to go to units, the units property, and we're going to set it equal to DDL units of measurement dot selected text dot value. So this allows the user the opportunity to choose what measurements they want to make use of, and then they can start using those measurements in mixed reality through their camera lens. So that's the one for units, and then we'll also change measurement type. So that will be DDL, measurement type, Selected text. So now this button will make use of whatever the user chooses. Great. I'm also just going to add a data table to the screen, because when using the measure in MR, you'll see once I demo the live version of this, you get a submit button on the screen. And this data table will actually capture that submitted information. And then once again, you can use that information and store it either in CDS or SharePoint. It's completely up to you. So let's just go media node. Charts. Sorry, data table. The data table doesn't have to be very huge or large, because when you're submitting, it actually just submits one row of information. I haven't figured out how you can submit and then just continue adding to the data table. I don't have enough knowledge to do that yet. Cool. One thing that I also forgot to set for the button is also, once again, the on change property. We're also collecting the photos being taken, because you can actually take photos of the measurements that you've taken. So we're also just going to collect that into my pictures and go self photos. Great stuff. So for the data table, for items, we need to get the details of your measurements that was populated when you pressed on the measure in MR button. So what we'll do is we set the items property for the data table to the name of the button, which is measure in MR1. It's always good to rename your controls. Measure in MR dot measurements detailed. Cool. So once you've done that, and you come to the properties of the data table and you click on edit fields, you'll be able to add some fields that is retrieved from that measurements detailed. So I'm going to select the height, the path length, and the unit. The reason I'm not choosing segments is because that's quite a complicated column that uses objects, and I haven't quite figured out how to break those down into smaller columns. So I'm just going to use the simple ones for now. And once that's done, you've got your data table set, and then the submit when you submit the values that you've captured when using measuring MR, those will come up here. Cool. So last but not least, we're going to add the view shape in MR button. So when I first saw this, I was thinking, what is the purpose of just placing a cube in my environment? But after watching quite a few demo videos from other people in the community, I realized it's in the event where, let's say, you can't find a model or a 3D model for a specific, maybe a cupboard or a fridge, then you can, and you have the exact measurements for it, you can actually create a cube and see if it will still fit in the position or in the place where you want to put it. So once again, if we look at the properties for this button, we've got shape width, shape height, shape depth, and a unit of measurement. So this allows the user to decide the size, the height, and the depth of a cube that they want to place and, you know, display through their camera lens. So once again, I made it available for the user to decide the width, the height, and the depth. So I got some text boxes on the screen, and then I'm just going to set the properties for this button to rather look at the text boxes instead of just looking at the properties on the right. So let's do that quickly. So for shape depth, we're going to use text depth. Is everybody still with me? I haven't lost anyone along the way.
Yeah, this is awesome.
It's very cool. I have been having so much fun with this. Text and then the width. Oops. Okay, and then we're also going to set the units property. I decided to use the same drop-down of the one at the top of the screen here, so I'm just going to continue using that. Units of measurement dot selected text. Great, and then once again also for this button, just changing the on-change property to collect the photos taken during when you using your camera to see where this cube is going to fit in. So it's very cool. Photos. Cool. And that's pretty much all the setup there is to it. I'm just going to navigate to the last screen I have, which is photo gallery. And this is just a simple gallery. And I'm going to make the data source, the collection called My Pictures, just so that we can see the photos taken after you've built your app. So here we're just going to make it My Pictures. And we're just going to set the image to this item dot image URI. Great, and then hopefully I completed all the steps successfully so that when I go over to actually show you how this app works, that it will actually work. Let's hope everything goes well. So I'm just going to save this and publish the app quickly. And then I'm going to start sharing the screen from my phone. So that published successfully. And then if you'll just give me a moment to just switch over from the PC to the phone.
Karika, so while you switch over, I mean, you're a developer, right? So I'm sure you've tested this. How accurate are these measurements?
I would say it all depends. So what I've seen is like if it's really close to you, they seem pretty accurate. But I've seen when I move the object further away, I find that it seems less, it looks less accurate and it looks more unrealistic. So especially when it came to the generate, that's when I was so glad when I saw that you can actually specify the height and the width, because the tiger kept on showing up so tiny. I mean, he was the size of my foot, and everybody knows a tiger can never be the size of my foot because I don't have very large feet. And then also what I found is once you specify the measurements, it does seem to be pretty accurate, in my honest opinion. But that's only my findings so far.
That's awesome.
Cool. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. If you can all just give me a moment quickly.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
No,
Are we still seeing your PC?
Yeah.
Okay, let's allow permission to share screen here. Can everybody see the screen now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
Great. Just want to switch on the light while this is loading. Okay, so I'm going to click on the MR JoziPUG demo app that we've been using so far. Let's refresh this. We allow it to use our camera. Can everybody see the app?
Looking good so far?
Okay,
Very good,
great.
thank you.
So now I'm going to click on the little animal icon. This will expose the animal gallery, which is using SharePoint as a data source. And then it's just a simple list that's populated. So I'm going to click on the tiger. And then you'll see you've got the usual on a list. You can see I've populated some of the metadata, and then we've got our view in 3D control and also the button. So I'm just going to wait for this 3D content to load.
How big is that file, or is it just the complexity of it that's causing it to take long?
I think it's the complexity, because I've looked at the files, like they vary, but most of them are in the bracket of being anything from 12 megabytes to at least 25 megabytes.
Sure. Okay, so it is pretty big.
Oh, okay. I didn't think it was considered big, but cool. So as you can see, the model has loaded. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit to show you that I can actually manipulate it on the screen. And you can turn it around. How cool is that, everyone?
That is so cool.
That is awesome.
That's pretty cool, hey? But it gets better. Wait. So now I clicked on the view in MR button, and this will actually now view it in my space. So it's going to expose my camera, and then I can actually put the tiger in my house. Oh, my word. So I'm just waiting for it to get ready. Thanks for everybody's comments. It keeps on popping up on the screen. I haven't switched off notifications. What a bummer. Okay. So then we get to platform, and then tap anywhere to place. And there we have it. A tiger in our kitchen. And then you can move it forward and backward. You can rotate if you want. How cool is that? And then you can take some pictures. Let's twist it around a little bit. Almost looks like the tiger is flying. How cool is that? Then if we go back and we look at the photo gallery, you can actually see the photos that I've taken. I didn't set up the gallery to, when you click on a photo, to make it larger at the moment. I was playing around with mixed reality, so excuse me for not thinking about everything. Cool, so now we went to the measurements screen, where we can actually choose a unit of measurement or a measurement type. I like actually using centimeters, so I'm going to leave it there. And then for measurement type, I'm going to choose area and volume, because I've had lots of fun with area and volume. And then I'm just going to simply tap measure in MR. Once again, just get some, I don't know what to call these dots, but yeah, this is what is used for augmented reality or the mixed reality. And then you click on the little plus, and then you can actually drag your phone and you'll see it measuring. And then you plus again to make an extra line, plus again, and you can really make any shape you want. I enjoy making these triangles. So then you click on plus again, and then you can actually give it some height. And then it creates a model for you that you can actually move around and place somewhere or anywhere you want. And you can take photos of it. It's completely up to you. And I think you can also rotate it. I mean, that's so crazy that it actually generated a model for you. You didn't even have to do anything special. You just provided measurement types. Then you click on submit, and it populates our data table with the height that I've measured. And then it takes the path length, which is the calculated path of your whole area that you measured. So lastly, I'm so happy this is going so well. And then lastly, we're going to specify 50 as width. Let's go 20 for height, and let's go 10 for depth. And then we want to place a cube in our space. Okay, tap anywhere. And there's our tiny cube, which we can again then move around, take photos of it, and you can also rotate it if you need to place it against the wall or something like that. Good.
This is so
And then if we
cool.
go back, you'll see all our images in the gallery that it captured using any one of the 3 models. So I'm just quickly going back to my screen. And just sharing.
This is so cool.
It is pretty cool. Just gonna mute myself on the.
There we go. Awesome. So that was that for my demo. And then just to touch a little bit, I'm just going to go through this a little bit fast because I don't know how much time I've taken up already. So lessons learned. The first lesson that I learned, which was very important, is that this only works on devices that are compatible with our core app from. So one of my original phone that I used wasn't supported, so that was such a bummer. And then I've provided the link where you can actually get a list of the supported devices. So yeah, just take note of that. Number 2, please read the documentation. The documentation has helped me so much. Number 3, the models needs to be in the .glb format. 4, after playing around with this, I realized I need to seriously upskill on 3D modeling. And then 5, I've also noted that your phone needs to have good quality focus, because sometimes when you move around to get that, it's almost like a surface area where you can place the mixed reality object. If the focus isn't good, you find that your little dots that it creates on the screen literally drifts off and it takes the model with it. So that's been interesting. And then resources. Number 1, Microsoft Docs. They've really done a great job in documenting how you can use the view in 3D model, the view in MR button, the place a shape, view a cube, and also measuring. They've got nice articles that explains all of that. Another resource I've used is Sketchfab. You can get some free models from there. And then, like I explained earlier, using 3D Viewer and 3D Paint on Windows. Another resource that I use, this is when using 3D Paint on Windows, you save the file as a .fpx. I found this link in point number 4 a great resource to view the .fpx model and then convert it to a .glb, because it takes the color and the textures and everything with it, which is great. Then I've also watched a great how-to video by Jesse's Power Channel. Do check it out. And like Jonathan mentioned earlier, checking out the Microsoft Application Summit, Microsoft Business Application Summit link. But then specifically touching on mixed reality is this video by Michael O'Connor. So the link is on the screen, and I will share this presentation slides afterwards. I'll just find out from Jonathan and David where they normally share their slides too. And then also, if you need some inspiration or check out some cool ideas, do go to the Power Apps community demo extravaganza. There's people doing some amazing things on the Power Platform. It's really actually, it's so cool what people can think about when you start using this. And with that concludes my session.
Rika, that was really awesome. It's great to see all the functionality built in. Great demo. That was really great. I'm sure others can echo it as well.
That's
Thank you
fantastic.
so much, everyone.
So Rika, I have a couple of questions though. So what phone did you use to do this demo on?
So I have to tell you guys this. I went and got me a phone specifically for this. So the phone I used was a Samsung A51.
Okay, and it handled it quite well?
I do believe it did. Since it is, I think from the reviews I read, it's like a middle entry type of phone. So I believe it handled it very well. I find it very helpful.
So just submit an expense claim to Michael for that then.
Oh, yay, yes.
Yeah,
or should
Michael
that be
hands
to Rory?
all logistics. No, I think it's still Michael.
That's fantastic. So other question is, you mentioned that you need to skill up on your 3D modeling. So what additional skills would you want to attain in order to do this?
So for me personally, it would be being able to create models that I want. You know, so obviously when you look through Sketchfab and you go through the 3D viewer library, there's such a big amount of models. But in some cases, for me personally, I would have liked to be able to be one of those 3D model creators, you know, then I can design it to whatever I would like to have instead of having to look at premium ones. But if you don't want to go through the effort of that, by all means, use the free ones and use the premium ones. I mean, there is a whole host of 3D models available. It's insane.
You know, maybe check out Tinkercad. Tinkercad's quite a cool, easy to use modeling tool.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out. Thanks, Jonathan. Tinkercad.
Yeah, Tinkercad. I'll post a link in the chat window.
Awesome. Thanks. Any other questions?
How much time did it take you to put all of this together, to break open this technology?
Well, I must say, to start using the functionality that's available in Power Apps took me about half an hour to an hour at most. What took me the longest was trying to find 3D models I want to use and, you know, making sure that they work through the app or that it actually displays the model correctly, you know, instead of having a white model, actually have a model that shows you color. That took me the longest time. And I would say that can take you anything from a week to maybe a month just to select the content that you want. But building the app, half an hour to an hour to try and figure out what goes where and how it all works and comes together.
Okay, that's awesome. So, and if you had to go and develop this?
Ooh, I wouldn't even know where to start.
It's insane what they've achieved with this. I mean, the technology in the back end to make all of this happen must be absolutely mind-numbing.
I know, right? I was like blown away.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Thanks again for that, Karika. That was really great to see. Okay,
awesome.
so
thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for all the effort and for buying a new phone.
So, David, with that, I'm going to hand over to you.
So I think just one last question. I think that, you know, Karika, while you were busy with this, what other use cases were you considering or popped up into your head that you really thought would be awesome to build with this?
I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you for asking it. My mind was exploding with ideas. So first of all, I really enjoyed this as a measure of, you know, it provides, for me, it was like providing a whole new way of teaching children, you know, measuring, making maths fun through their own mobile devices, tablets, phones, also teaching them about animals and maybe even like biology type of things, and, you know, with the whole physics for clothing, being able to create, you know, measure, maybe taking someone's measurements and providing suggestions on, let's say, jackets or dresses or shirts or pants, and then being able to show that model, and it's almost like you can fit it in your own home, in the comfort of your own home. And considering the whole thing with COVID-19, not having to go into a store and physically try on clothes, I actually thought that would be a nice use case. And then also, like they showed with, I think it was the Microsoft Business Application Summit, they showed how IKEA is using this to get people to, instead of having to go to the shop to measure furniture, you can actually place the object or the model of a table or a chair inside of your house and check whether it will actually fit in the spaces you want it to be fitted. So there's a lot that you can do with that.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I'm sure as you work with it, more and more things come up.
Most definitely.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Michael, yeah, Manuel, you spot on. You know, I'd hate to have to follow that demo. That must really suck.
And guess what you're doing? Oh, wait, wasn't Michael supposed to be delivering the PVA stuff?
Yes.
I think he's feigning mute.
What are you talking about? I have a few demos lined up for, you know, Mike's Confusing Corner segment. But am I on now, or is David going now?
No, David's still going now with PVA. I mean, you're going to be after that.
All right.
Thanks,
So
David. Take it away.
Awesome. So just want to make sure I'm sharing my screen. Okay, excellent. Can everybody see my Power Virtual Agent screen?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Yep. So there's been quite a lot of exciting new functionality deployed with PVAs. I think the first thing that's quite exciting is the fact that it's got its own community board now. So if you go to powerusers.microsoft.com, which I'm sure everybody is registered on by now, and if you're not, you really should be. This is a phenomenal community. You'll see there's a Power Apps virtual agent community dedicated to PVA. And if you go into it, you'll see there's a board for general discussion. So this is where the majority of the action happens. And it's really worth, if you're going to do anything on PVA, go and register in this community and make sure that you can have access to these resources. Is everybody registered on Power Users by now? I only want to hear one click.
I'm here. I'm there.
Cool. All right. So then from a functionality perspective, I'm quickly going to run through some of the things that have been released. And one of the first things is you can now very easily go and customize the canvas which the bot is surfaced in. So I've just got a very basic bot over here. Not going to go into too much detail of that. What I am going to show you is where to find these articles, and I'll also include this in the links after the call. Right, so here is a link to the blog that explains how to create a custom canvas in order to surface the bot in. and it's really, really easy to do. So all that you need is you need to put this HTML into an HTML file, and then just update the bot ID into this variable over here. And that is essentially all that you need to do. And then what that looks like, it allows you to change some of the basic look and feel just in the HTML that comes out of the box. But in this article, you'll also see there's a link to a GitHub repository that's got a whole bunch of properties that you can go and change in order to play around with the look and feel. So you can change the avatar images and the sizes and the colors and fonts and all of these sort of things. And then what that looks like, if you now launch this, I'm just going to open up one this is very basic. There's nothing spectacular done in this customization. But if I go and interact with this file, you'll see this file is actually on my local machine. So this HTML file is very basic, and this then connects back to the bot service or the PVA in order to surface this. So if I go and say hi, okay, cool. So there's the bot that's responding. All of these icons are custom images that we've added. And then from here, we can go and ask this bot questions. So all right, so that's working pretty well. And that just makes it so much easier to get up and running with the bot in a website or something like that. You can actually take this code and then build on top of that. Right, next thing is one of the very hot topics, or one of the hot requests actually, was to be able to launch a bot and launch a website and then have the bot immediately start interacting with you. So what they've done is it's very similar to the custom canvas that we've got over here. And in that canvas, you just add another property or a function that'll actually start the bot. So I'll put a link to this into this blog as well. But essentially, the code or the HTML is very similar. All that it does in addition to all of this is to call the start conversation. So over here, it actually delivers the payload to the bot, and then it comes back and starts interacting. So I'm just going to launch that one again. This is just a very simple HTML file on my machine. And you'll see the moment I launch it without typing anything in, it just comes back and it starts talking to me. So there's the standard greeting. And then from here, I can immediately go and interact with it. So that's, typically if you access a website or a product page or something like that, where the bot could come up and ask if you have any questions, or, if it could assist with anything. So, so here we can go and start asking this thing questions. So I don't know, how much does Power Apps cost? Okay, so if you haven't noticed this yet, the prices in Power Apps have actually come down significantly in the past 3 months. It used to cost the same as about 6 packets of smokes, but now it only costs the same as about 2 packets. So it's actually come down quite a bit.
You're a funny guy.
All right, so next thing that they've improved quite a lot on is the Power Automate connector. So if I go into the bot, and I'm going to go to, you'll see I've got a generic topic for authentication, and I'll explain how we do that in a few minutes. But essentially, we now have this topic that does all of the authentication for the bot. So I didn't have to go and build the logic to do the authentication in various places. I can consolidate that, which is a good idea. But essentially in the past, the Power Automate actions you had to do through the HTTP request and response mechanism, which worked quite well, but it was, it's a complex process to get up and running, as well as the fact that you need to go and create the Power, or you needed to go and create the Power Automate inside of a solution manually before the bot would be able to see it. All of those things go away, and just out of the box, you can go and link this into a Power Automate So you'll see this is the action that after the authentication takes place, which is a very simple process. I just want to see here. So there's just an authentication action which takes place. That's nothing new. So if you have any questions on that, then I can take you through that. But that's not part of the functionality that was released recently. You could do that last year already. But essentially, this action here is where it calls Power Automate. And to show you how easy this is, I'm just going to pretend to add another one. So I'm going to say call an action. And then here's a list of all of the Power Automates or the flows that this bot has access to. So it's very easy to go and select one of these. Actually, don't want to open it. I just wanted to go and add a new one. So call an action. Just pretend I want to add the get account info. It's going to ask me for the variable to pass to Power Automate. So inside of Power Automate, I'll open that now, but there's an input parameter that it needs, and then it's going to send me certain things as well. So here's the outcome or the output properties from that Power Automate run. And that's essentially it. If I wire these values to the correct variables inside of the Power Virtual Agent, that's my job done. That's end of discussion. So that's very easy and quick to do. So,
David, can I ask a quick question here?
Yes.
So when you do that automate call, I was struggling with that a week ago or so. Do you use the graph call, or is there something you can use that comes with Office 365 licensing?
Is that for to find out what the user details are?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can open that up quickly. So I'm using Graph. The challenge is everything that you do in Office 365, you need the UPN at least. So if you can't get the UPN through Graph, then it's very difficult to use the Office 365 users or anything like that. So I haven't.
And Graph has a premium connector. So
yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the other option would be to use CDS, but that's also a premium connector. So that's actually a very good point. I think we need to create an idea with Microsoft to make it easier and more cost effective to actually just find out who the user is. All right, so in this PVA, I'm doing the authentication here, and then I just want to pass this session or the user details back to the Power App, or sorry, the virtual agent, to tell the user that we've got the email address and these sort of things, and you can then write these into global variables, which is also a new piece of functionality, and then use it throughout the bot. But let me open up that Power Automate quickly, or that flow. So you'll see here is the Power Virtual Agent, and this is now what's new. So you don't need the HTTP request response anymore. And this is where you're passing from the authentication. Let me actually just show that. Although that's not new, is as part of the authentication, we're setting the auth token that comes back from the OAuth authentication process. And then we're passing that into the Power Automate flow run. And then, so this is one of the input parameters, and then we're using that to call Graph, and then we're passing that inside of the authentication value for the bearer token as the bearer token. Then we're passing the results that we get back. We're sending a push notification to the user's device, so that tells them that they've now logged into PVA, similar to what happens on your banking. And then we return the username as well as the email address back to the PVA process. All right, so none of that is new. What is new is the fact that the Power Automate integration is now a lot easier. You don't need to use the HTTP request and response anymore. Any questions on that? Right, so let's close those things. All right, so going back to the global variables that I just briefly mentioned now, this has been something that's quite a game changer, and I'll show you what is a very good way of using it. First of all, when you've got a greeting, I'm going to open up the system topic, which is the standard greeting, and you'll see that at this stage, we tell the user that we can offer these services to them, so we can send them to an FAQ, which is anonymous, so you don't need to log in for any of that. So I'm just going to open up a new session for that bot. So if we click on FAQ, there's no authentication or anything like that. We can just start interacting with the bot. But the moment that I tell it that I want to view information that requires authentication, for an example, account info, this is now going to force me to log in. And let's do that. It's going to give me this token, which I need to copy and then put back into the bot. And that's then the information that it passes back to Power Automate. So in this instance, if I go and put in the company name over here, this is now calling a flow to talk to CDS and extract that information. And we can drill down into that a little bit later. But essentially what I want to show you is at this stage what it's doing in order to make that authentication happen from the greeting. So over here, we've got the standard greeting. We're telling the user what are the options that they can execute. And then if it's anything that requires authentication, we're redirecting them to the topic of authentication. But when they've finished with the authentication, we would like to direct them to the topic which they chose. So if they, for an example, specified account info, immediately after the authentication, we want to direct them to the account info topic that'll guide them through drilling down into the account information. Similarly, if they go and choose the create an account, we want to, after the authentication, immediately direct them to that topic. And the way how we do that is by using the variable, a global variable, and this is fairly new, where there you can specify whether this variable is for this topic only, or whether it's available anywhere in this bot. And so this is what is referred to as a global variable. So this is very useful. So if we go back, you'll see that it sets that global variable. It then redirects to the topic, to the authentication topic. And then at the end of that authentication topic, we go and check what that variable is set to and then redirect them to the actual topic which they were looking for. So, okay, so there's the authentication, and then we go and simply check after that, was that variable set to account info? If it is, send it to the get account info topic. Otherwise, send it to the create account topic. Okay, any questions on that? Right, so global variables are quite a game changer. So what I'm going to do quickly is on the company information. So if we go and say we want to create an account, or let's say we want to use the get account info. One of the things that's also fairly new is the ability to send people back into the discussion. So what I'm going to show you is if I go and say, so just start from the beginning. So if I say I want to check account information, now I'm going to say, you'll see because I'm logged in already, it doesn't prompt me for that token again. It just automatically logs me in and it queries Power Automate and it gets my username and details. So if I go and say, I'm looking for the information for Ukuvuma. It now goes out, it gets that information from Power Automate, who then talks to CDS, and then it asks me if I would like to check another company's details. Now, this section over here, if I go and say yes, it's going to redirect me and ask me for which company. And I think I only have one company in here at the moment, but if I type in Ukuvuma again, it'll go and find that information for me again. Now, previously to do that, there was no easy way to send people back up in the discussion. So all of this could now be done in a single topic. So from the top down, you'll see the first question it asks is which account name would you like to retrieve the info for? And then we set that to the var company name variable. We then call the Power Automate and we pass it the company name. That then checks CDS and it does the filtering and the querying and it returns the correct data. If the query is successful, if we get a response back, we basically ask the person, would you like to check for another company's details? And if they say yes, which is this condition over here, you'll see that here's a line that goes up right from underneath this condition straight up to the top. Right, so that then just throws the discussion back into this question. So this is a pretty big game changer. This previously was quite difficult to achieve this, where this is now very, very easy to do. So how to do that is a little bit more tricky though. It's not that it's not that self-explanatory. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the create account phrase or a topic. And you'll see here is one of these that don't have anything at the moment, if I remember correctly. Okay, so no, this one is wide up as well. But essentially, you'll see this line goes up to this first question. So I'm just going to delete that, and I'm just going to show you how to do that because it's not that self-explanatory. So you'll see at the moment there's an empty condition here. So this condition doesn't have an action that's going to follow this case. So to add this or to link it back up, you click on the plus to add a node, to add an action, and then you can say show a message. Although we don't actually want to show a message, we just want to have an action over here so we can come and click on that little dot over there. So you click on that once, single click, single left click, and then you scroll up to where you want to add that. So we want to add it to over there. And there you see it automatically just adds this line to this previous question or the actual upstream question. And then at the same time, you might have seen this action that's now orphaned that just ran up the screen. Looks like a Tetris game that went bad. But from here, we can just go and delete that now. And then this topic is now ready to go. So that's a pretty big game changer. It's not that easy to figure out, but once you got that, it's pretty easy to do. Any questions on that?
David?
Yes.
I don't have a question on sending the conversation back to the top. I do, however, have a question when typing in a customer name or an account name. Does it allow for misspelling of the company name and maybe providing suggestions like, did you mean this? No,
not at the moment. So out of the box, I don't think there's anything that's going to do that. But what you could do is you could maybe pass this back, whatever they type in, you can go and pass back to Power Automate, and then you can use some fancy expressions to go and see, to use like operators to go and check if it may be, could be associated with any of the company names if it couldn't find anything. But out of the box, I don't think it's going to give you anything to do that.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool. Any other questions? So One other thing I just want to quickly show you is the fallback topic, which is it's almost like think of it as a catch-all. So if one of your topics failed and it doesn't know how to get out of it, or it doesn't understand what the user is typing, then you can go to the settings icon at the top. You can go and create a system fallback. By default, it's not there. So you can go and create one. You'll see in this section, you can go and click on create a fallback topic. And then under system topics, you'll see there's now fallback that's created after you've done that. And then you can go and specify what would you like to happen in this instance. Would you just by default want to escalate this to an agent? Or do you want to ask the user if they would like to try again or talk to a human? And then you can do the escalation or then redirect to confirmed failure, which then affects your statistics for this bot, so you can see how many people actually got what they wanted from it. And that then brings me to the second last discussion in this topic is the analytics. So there's a lot of work that's gone into analytics. So if you click on that, you'll see that it'll show you all of your sessions that you've engaged with this bot with, the engagement rate. In other words, how many people actually started talking to the bot. Then what is the resolution rate? So how many people found what they were looking for? And then you can also go and check the customer satisfaction to go and see how the people rated the bot. So at the end of the process, there's now an easy way for people to go and click on a smiley face, and that would allow them to rate the satisfaction for this process. So there's also a billing tab, which is very important, and that'll show you how many of the sessions you're being billed for. And so by default, even if the bot talks to you first, so early on we showed how you could now have the bot trigger a greeting out of its own, so you don't need to interact with the bot to get a greeting out of it. So that won't count as a build session. So it's only when the users start typing back to the bot that it accounts for a session, which you then ultimately pay for. Any questions on any of that? Then last thing I want to show you is you can also go and download all of the discussions or conversations that the bot had. So if you go into entities in your CDS environment, obviously all of this runs on CDS, so you're not going to do anything without CDS in this case. So if you go to conversation transcripts, you'll see if you go into data, it'll actually list every single conversation that you had with the bot. So if you needed to go and do troubleshooting, or if you're getting funny results from the bot, you can download this and actually go and analyze the JSON to go and understand where things went wrong. Okay. So I think in a nutshell, that's what's new in Power Virtual Agents. It's really the amount of time they're spending on this is phenomenal. It's really getting to a stage where you can do some awesome stuff very, very quickly out of the box.
Great stuff. Thanks, David. That was really cool.
All right. So then, is Michael? Are you ready?
And now it's Mike's corner.
Hey, I'm always ready. I think. Yeah, I'm all good. I'll run through this fairly quickly, so people can. I'll say go home, but you're probably already at home, aren't you? Okay, so there were three things I wanted to share this week. From Michael's stressful week of playing with some Power App stuff and getting stuck. There were three things that I thought might be useful for the rest of the community. Jonathan, just confirm you can see my Office UI Fabric screen, right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, cool beans. So the first one is the first issue I had was, the amount of icons that are available in Power Apps. When you go icons, and you want to use one of these icons, I mean, there's a decent amount, but there's not all the ones that I would like to use. So I was looking at, where can I get different icons to use from? And so Microsoft has published what they call the Office UI Fabric icons. And this is a whole bunch of icons that are used or can be used throughout Office. They look like Office, smell like Office, etc. There's a couple of thousand of them. I noticed there's an aeroplane, not probably that useful at this point in time, but anyway, but there's a whole bunch of them. And some clever person, what they've done is they've gone and created a Power App to use those Fabric icons. So here is the Power App. Let me just run this thing. And so from here, you can go and search for icons. So you can search for a specific icon that you're looking for. When you find the icon, let's say it is this this pencil over here. Yeah, not a very fancy one, but anyway. Then on the right-hand side, it gives you the SVG for that icon. And literally, you can take this, copy and paste it as the source property on an image. And now you have that icon in your app. You can also go and change the color. You can use, obviously, HTML codes here, but just for me, I'll just say red for now. And then you'll see in the SVG itself, somewhere here, there we go, it's got red. So that you could also parameterize this so that this is a property or a variable that then can be added into your app. So that's pretty cool. And literally, you just copy this and paste it as the source property on an image that you throw into your Canvas app. So I thought this is pretty cool. This is, you can just get it from GitHub. Here's the path over here. I'll pop the URL into the IM window and just before we finish up this evening. So that was the first one. Pretty cool. The other thing I've actually been using quite a lot of recently is I wanted shadow boxes in my Power Apps. And so I found this pretty cool shadow box component also on GitHub. So I use this quite regularly. It works very, very well. And also, once again, I'll just pop the URL into the Teams chat as well, so you have access to it. The one thing, I don't know if, David, if you know the answer to this, but one thing I've struggled with, I don't know if it's possible, but to actually put components, because this is a component, so you import the component and then you can create multiple instances of the component on screens, but to put a component inside a gallery, I haven't been able to do that. As far as I know, that's not possible. Or does anyone else have an idea around that?
I don't think that's possible, no.
Okay. So that's the only challenge with this at the moment then, is if you, like me, love galleries, you can't put one of these things into a gallery and have it repeat, but certainly you can put it all over the application. Essentially, the way this works is it also is just generating SVG and creating an image out of it. So you can go and check the source. It's, I'd like to say pretty straightforward, but only really straightforward if you understand SVG, which I don't. So I just plug it on, set a whole bunch of properties to make it look different, and it's pretty cool and works awesomely well. So another one I would suggest is the shadow box component.
And that's from the same gentleman who did the SVG app.
I'm not sure it is actually. Oh, yeah, it is
yeah.
From the same gentleman.
Yeah, I know him from the community. This guy is an absolute rocket scientist.
Yeah, so it's probably worth just going and checking out his other components as well. But yeah, I found these super, super, super useful, especially the shadow box. I use it very regularly.
I have to say that if SVG is going to change the way we do a lot of things going forward, it's an absolute game changer.
Yeah, well, I've actually got one of my colleagues who's built this this really awesome gauge control, if you want to call it that, but it's super sophisticated and it's all out of SVG. So really now, I mean, you can make your Power App look like anything, and using SVG just really makes it possible. I guess you got to obviously start learning SVG or use one of the tools that generates SVG and then copy and paste that SVG and parameterize it a bit. But it really does mean that it opens up many options to make your apps really look cool. and amazing.
Michael, sorry, I just want to ask you, the icons that you showed earlier, do you know if you can import that into a model-driven app to use it as an icon in the model-driven app?
I don't. What I have been doing, though, is embedding Canvas apps in model-driven apps and using this a lot there.
Okay.
But I'm not sure specifically. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe something you can find out and let us know.
Sure, cool, thank you.
No, I haven't tried it.
Michael, what you would need to do is save that SVG and import it as a web resource.
Oh, can you save it as an SVG from here?
Yeah, because it's just text, so you can take this thing
sure.
here, this SVG, and then save it as a .svg file or a text file or whatever you want it to, and then upload it as a web resource.
Okay, cool.
Is that what you're saying? Right?
Yep.
That's what he's saying. Thanks, Mornay.
You're welcome.
Cool. Okay, and then the last one, which yeah, I could spend a very long time talking about this, more around the pain that I've had in this specific issue. So this is the third one. I had this very basic challenge. Was I wanted to have a Canvas app, and on my Canvas app, I wanted to show all the cases for a specific contact. And this is basically using CDS. So in CDS, there's a cases entity, and there's a contacts entity, which are contacts. And there's a relationship between cases and contacts. And so literally, I just wanted to say, filter all cases for a specific contact ID or GUID. And this works very simply. You can see the filter here. So you do a filter on the cases entity, and the column that you're filtering on is customer ID value. And then you can put your GUID in there. And it works beautifully if you're using the Dynamics 365 connector or the old CDS connector. But as of November 2019, there's a new CDS connector. And this doesn't work with that one because they've kind of changed the way that the CDS connector works. And for the most part, it makes life much easier. And one of the biggest changes with the new CDS connector, besides there's performance improvements and there's a whole bunch of things, but one of the changes is when you're trying to do a comparison like this, you no longer do comparisons on GUIDs or IDs. You do comparisons on objects. So what you do is you say, filter the cases where the customer equals a customer object. And that means I need to actually get a customer record and do a comparison that way. So that's one of the things that has changed. And what I wanted to do is just give you a quick sense of a few other examples and then show you how I actually ended up solving this problem. So this would be an old way of, for example, filtering the accounts entity in CDS, where a field called category value is equal to 1. So this is how you would used to do it. But actually, it turns out in this scenario, category value is actually an option set. So you don't have to now go and figure out, well, what's the ID of the value behind the option set? You can write it more like English, and this is more like an object comparison. So you'll see the bottom, the way that you would do this now is you'd say, hey, I want to filter the accounts entity, but where the category equals, and what's being typed here is essentially the name of the option set dot preferred customer. Preferred customer is one of the values in the option set, and that would filter it. So I don't have to actually know that preferred customer is equal to 1. So that's pretty cool. And so now you're saying, okay, well, what does this mean for your challenge? So let me just quickly show you my challenge. That's not my challenge. That's also not my challenge. Let's pop this out and go to this screen over here. And so what I'm going to do is I literally want to filter cases where the contact ID is equal to this GUID over here. So at the top, I've got, this is a cases data table. So I've just bound contacts to this table. So that's just listing some of the contacts. You can actually ignore that. That's not really relevant for this little demo. But at the bottom here, I've got a data table, that ordinarily you might bind to cases, but that would be too many. So I want to filter it, and I want to filter this where the contact ID is equal to this thing over here. And so essentially what I'm doing is, if you look at the logic of this button, when I click it, it's going to create this variable called var contact, and it's going to look up the contacts entity where the contact ID is equal to this GUID. So when I select this, I'm now going to have this variable that contains a contact record. Okay. And then let's just go here. Sorry for my screen real estate issues here. My cases table. Oh, let's just come back to my cases table. You'll see now I'm filtering my cases table where the customer ID value is not equal to the GUID, but is actually equal to a contact record, a contact object. And this will now work. So let me just run this. He says bravely. And there we go. I now get the cases for that specific contact. Now, the reason why I'm pointing this kind of scenario out to you is many times when you're building Power Apps, you probably actually won't really run into this issue, because you might have a gallery that lists all your contacts. Then when you select a contact, you can then just say, okay, filter cases or whatever else you want to do based on that contact object you've already got. This issue only arises when you have to start dealing with GUIDs like this, where I might have this GUID in some other system somewhere. It might be in a data lake or some other, I've saved it somewhere else, and now I want to be able to do something like this, and this is where it happens. And I want to show you something else which is a bit weird, but this tricked me up for literally probably 2 weeks, but that's because I am obviously quite slow. So what I thought, the way I initially did this, because I knew you have to do object comparison, you're not going to do GUID comparison. I actually initially did this all in one statement. So what I did is I said, filter the cases where the customer ID value equals, and then I would do the lookup like this. So here I'm doing it in one statement. And you would think that that would be okay. But in a second, come along. It will happen. Come along. And I don't know why it's not doing it now, unless they've resolved something on the back end. But this would always give me a delegation warning. And a delegation warning basically means if you've got more than like 500 records, you're not going to get your data back. And so I had to go and split this out into a separate step through a button or app on start or wherever you might put it. But now it just seems to be working. And I refreshed this about 2 hours ago, so maybe they've changed something and it's now just working. Very bizarre, but yeah, pretty happy if that's now the case. Let's just maybe change this.
Well done for figuring that out, Michael. Wow.
No, still seems to be working. So I'm pretty chuffed, to be honest. So you won't run into that issue. But I guess the point is just know when you're dealing with the new CDS, you're not going to be doing comparisons with ID values and stuff like that. You're going to be doing object comparisons. And there's a great article that explains it all. I'll also pop that in the IM window as we're closing down, just from a reference perspective, so you've got it. Oh, there we go. I now get the delegation warning. I knew I'd get it. There we go. So now it's telling me that this is actually, got a delegation issue, and it actually does. When it's like this, you won't get the records back if you've got thousands of them. So you have to break it out into 2 separate steps. So that was just a gotcha. It took me a long time to resolve. And that's it from my side.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Some great info and insights there. I just want to open it up to the floor to see if there are any general questions or comments from the team. I see there have been a number of requests for a Power Virtual Agents in a Day session like we had with App in a Day. So I'll work with the rest of the team and we can look at setting that up in the near future. Just know it will probably be a Saturday morning again. We will have it virtually, of course, due to the current requirements. But if you are interested, just pop a note either on the Meetup or on the community site, just so that we can gauge how many people are interested and we can get those invites out. But just generally, are there any other questions, suggestions, comments from anyone on the call?
Happy.
Perfect. Well, with that, thanks everyone. Thanks, Rika, for the awesome demo. Really appreciate it. David, also great. Michael, thanks a lot. Everyone, thank you for your time this evening. Hope you found it worthwhile. And we'll look at being in contact with you next month. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening and rest of your week.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.